أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin, as I always begin, in the name of Allah, whose grace I seek in this and all other matters. I'm actually resuming my reflections and meditations on the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today I wanted to talk about Al-Adl. Adl means justice. It's interesting that the Quran has such a strong emphasis on justice that in fact there is a universal confirmation and unanimous agreement that justice is an important aspect of Islam by Muslim scholars. Obviously, I don't deal with the naysayers and the Islamophobes. They don't shape my perspective on reality. But there's so much consensus over Adl that when it came to working on gender, the necessary emphasis that we had to place on the experience of justice, as opposed to the idea that somehow there is an abstract and external confirmation of what is just that is also unanimously agreed upon. And in fact, the most important dimension for me was learning that the definition of Adl, as inspired by Greek and Hellenistic philosophical reflections, which were taken up, enhanced, and challenged by Islamic philosophical thinkers, that the definition of Adl, you could say 1,000, 2,000 years ago, was one that included the possibility of the institution of slavery. And to me, I see a parallel consideration of the institution of slavery with, patriarchy, because in both of those, there is the notion that when any two things come together, one of them needs to be on top. And you know how I feel about the Tawhidic paradigm, it's horizontal reciprocity. So the notion of equality, horizontal reciprocal equality, as a reflection of Adl, is in fact a sign of the intellectual, spiritual, and ethical development of the human community. Thanks in large part to women and non-binaries, because as I said, the development of the lived reality, the experience, which was always a part of Sufism, but it became a part of a kind of social justice philosophical discussion, and therefore of applied ethics, which had not been a part of the classical discourse, and to a greater extent to even the intellectual and philosophical reflections. So to think of Allah as just, for us, takes on both a physical, social, political, economic, etc., as well as metaphysical creation and eschatology, that is, for life and afterlife. It takes on a dimension of the physical and metaphysical intangent. And obviously, the number one question that people ask with regard to it is, if God is merciful, why do people suffer? For me, I have dwelt on that topic to the extent that I understand that human free will allows us to either confirm the unity and beauty of creation by our creator, or to act in counter distinction to that, and therefore there is suffering. And in fact, the suffering really shows us that humans have control. So for me, when we look at things like pandemic management, the environment, social justice, I feel that humans are not fulfilling their full khalifa or agency as granted to us by law, and that we need to do better. At the same time, I still pray. When I was thinking about the 99 names for today, I thought about Adl. Al-Adl is one of the 99 names. And because for me, my perspective on my life as a created being is always funneled through my reflections on my creator, Allah. I see another level spiritually of having my perception of Adl be in tangent with its combined physical and metaphysical components. So I believe that performing justice aligns us with our creator in such a way that we fulfill what is our responsibility with being gifted with life or being created in the first place. And I have written about attending the March on Washington with the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. In my 10th, 11th year with my father, the Methodist minister. And I say this to say that there has never been a notion of justice for me that was not aligned with the divine. That social justice and the sacred to me have always gone together. That's from my, sort of life experiences. We're talking at this point 60 years since that time. But I don't always see that in that 60 years, the synchronistic harmony between the physical and the metaphysical has been maintained by all of the community contexts in which I have been engaged as a Muslim. Therefore, I'm speaking of Muslim communities. Sometimes, for example, in Sufi circles, there is a very removed recognition of the significance of the social component. That is not that they're socially bad people, but rather that they do not engage in a discourse around social justice issues with the same level of intensity and integrity as the activist communities, which are engaged in the application of social principles and social justice and creating new systems and being a part of the change they want to see in the world to achieve greater justice. They are not often as equally aligned with the metaphysical. I've talked about this in different configurations. So for me as a Libra, I'm weighing the two things. And actually, alhamdulillah, with maturity, what Libra has come to understand is that sometimes you got to get a little bit of more than one thing, sometimes just two, but often way more than two, in order to balance out what is your own directive, perspective, and consideration of the matter. And so I'm happy with that. In other words, I can be with activists and still be as spiritual as I might self-identify. And I can be with Sufis and still be as politically active and motivated as I self-identify. And I can be with academics and be spiritual and social justice oriented. And so, I just, I've found my own level and I seek to grow from that level. But I say all this to say that in looking at the divine feminine, it is looking at Allah's name from the perspective of the Jalmal. I think that Adl is, again, one of those terms that has a very lovely potential for its masculine and its feminine considerations, but is as regards to the feminine aspects of the sacred, the Jamal, to me, Adl requires a reflection and a connection with our embodied reality, being in this 3D body, on the planet Earth. I don't think I can accept the notion that Adl is just an abstract concept. And there are people, and there are actually philosophy courses that teach it that way. It's a sort of barren, puritanical kind of discussion. And one of the things that we have learned with things like liberation theology and Crenshaw's principles of intersectionality is that none of that stuff works in real life unless you engage with that lived reality component and its legal, political, ethical, and as I said, spiritual implications. So I want to share with Allah as Al-Adl from the perspective of the embrace of the compassion and care for the human community that I see the term Adl as making strong implications towards. Thank you. If you like, please do say. If you have comments, let me know. If you have an attribute you want me to consider, please let me know in the comment section.